just heard what was a scintillating, incisive and penetrating analysis of the contemporary world. An entire worldview was presented in such a short number of minutes. After that, I think this can only go down. Your Excellency, Shri Pema Khanduji, Honorable Chief Minister of Arunachal Pradesh, Your Excellency, Shri P.D. Sonaji, Honorable Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, Your Excellency, Shri Gurumurthy Ji, who's the doyen of the think tanks in India today, Shri Chingnu Namchum Ji, Honorable MLA of Namsai, Nivedita Ji, Joram Begi Ji of the Vivekananda Kendra. It is a great pleasure for me to be here today at the Namsai Conclave on diversity, inclusion and mutual respect, arranged both by the working group and by the Vivekananda Kendra Institute of Culture, and with the enthusiastic support of the government of Arunachal Pradesh. India's presidency of the G20 has been what the Prime Minister described as inclusive, ambitious, action-oriented and decisive. As chair of the Civil20 engagement group, Her Holiness Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, or Amma, has exemplified a vision of civil society which is shared also by the Vivekananda Kendra Institute of Culture, of a society where diversity of interests and identities of the individual, the family, as well as of society, markets, and the state are given full expression, yet work in harmony with each other and aligned to the principles of solidarity, compassion that form the foundation of all relationships. Gurumurthy ji had just mentioned about relational rather than contract-based societies. Across the world, civil society organizations have flourished on a value system based on empathy and a sense of common good. They strive to be not only centers of socio-economic services to society, but also as conscience keepers providing a moral compass for society. They help strengthen the sinews of the state and the health of our democracy. Peaceful coexistence is possible in human society only where diversity and inclusion are undergirded by mutual respect. Indeed, diversity and inclusion are two sides of the same coin. If diversity is to be truly meaningful, it must be accompanied by a spirit of inclusiveness within society. On the other hand, there will be little point in being inclusive if that involves just a replication of homogeneity or sameness. Inclusion is about how the contributions, presence, and perspectives of different entities are valued and integrated into a larger ecosystem. By definition, exclusion is calculated to diminish, while inclusion is meant to enlarge and enrich. In community life, diversity is not something to be viewed with suspicion. It can help people enlarge their ways of thinking, provide new opportunities for testing ideas, dismantle stereotypes, and dispel misconceptions about different cultures, religions, ethnicities, sexualities, etc. By sensibly embracing diversity in individual communities within the country as well as in the world, we can make our lives richer and more meaningful. Over the years, C20 has recognized that as with diversity and inclusion at the social level within nations, there is need to be inclusive of diverse paths and perspectives at the international and global level too. The diverse approach to development was well understood by G20 leaders. Gurumurthy ji had just mentioned the transition at the United Nations from a one-size-fits-all approach to subsequent developments such as the human development approach, etc. G20 leaders have recognized that there was no uniform approach that fits all countries, and that each country should be able to choose the development approach and policies best suited to its specific characteristics, while benefiting from the accumulated experience in policy making over the last decades, including the importance of strong macroeconomic policies for sustained growth. The C20 group has explored the need to acknowledge, respect, adopt, and recommend diverse approaches for solving various issues. By bringing together stakeholders from across the globe, the working group can promote the need for flexibility and innovation, taking into account local capacities, culture, and resources. The focus should not be only on the diversity of individuals, but also on protection of diverse cultural traditions and enhancing social capital within communities. Many cultural traditions are environmentally conscious traditions, thus their contributions should be recognized, and their knowledge systems too should be part of our education. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed and exacerbated existing inequalities in our economies and societies. Whilst the effort to promote equality, diversity, and inclusion may have been relatively deprioritized during these times of disruption and existential challenges, it did remain on the international agenda. Today, it is embedded in the Build Back Better post-recovery narrative. Enterprises are also recognizing increasingly that different priorities and approaches are often needed to meet the needs of different groups and localities. Discussions on sustainability today increasingly argue that progress cannot be made without equality for everyone, with the central pledge of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Growth and the Sustainable Development Goals to leave no one behind. This is covered not only in SDG 5, gender equality, but also as an aspect of Goal 1, no poverty, Goal 10, reduce inequalities within and among countries, and Target 5 of Goal 8, decent work and economic growth within states. By 2030, we achieve full productive employment and decent work for all men and women, including for young people and people with disabilities, and equal pay for work of equal value. As early as May 2013, that is almost 10 years ago, the UNESCO International Conference adopted the Hangzhou Declaration, which embraced an understanding of culture that is open, evolving, and strongly framed within a rights-based approach. Such an understanding encompassed a respect for diversity, the free access to which enabled individuals to live and be what they choose, enhancing their opportunity and human capabilities, as well as promoting mutual understanding and exchange among peoples. It called for a positive dialogue inclusive of all community, including unrecognized communities, and their cultures through increased and widespread representation. The same is true with the diversity we see at the workplace around much of the world. When workplaces are filled with people from a range of diverse backgrounds, nationalities, and cultures, trades and businesses are bringing together unique experiences. They bring skills and opinion which can bring new and unique perspectives to these work itself. But respecting diversity in the work environment is sometimes arguably not enough. It must also be realized that many marginalized groups of people, whether people of color, LGBTQ people, people with disabilities, are often targets of oppression, and it is everybody's responsibility to try and understand and support people who might need to assert their rights. Cultural literacy is integral to quality education. In trying to promote inclusive and equitable societies, we must encourage the kind of artistic expression that, while expressing our traditional values through activities focused on sustainably protecting, safeguarding, and promoting our heritage, as well as paying attention to supporting responsible, inclusive tourism, leisure industries, etc., must also express the more disturbing current issues like gender discrimination, gender-based violence, as well as traumas resulting from such violence. It is often claimed that Indian social life is governed by a high degree of interdependence. People are born into groups, families, clans, subcastes, religious communities, and they feel a deep sense of inseparability from these groups. This is true, but it is not unusual for other societies also. Through a multitude of kinship ties, each person is linked with each other, whether in villages or towns, in international society too. The father of our constitution, Mr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, had this to say on such relationships. He said, an ideal society should be mobile, should be full of channels for conveying a change taking place in one part to the other parts. In an ideal society, there should be many interests consciously communicated and shared. There should be varied and free points of contact with other modes of association. This, in other words, is what he called social endosmosis. This is fraternity, which is only another term, he said, for democracy. Democracy is not merely a form of government. It is primarily a mode of associated living, of conjoint, communicated experience. It is essentially an attitude of respect and reverence towards fellow men. Unquote. Thank you.